Welcome to the You're Not Invisible After 50 podcast. I'm Kiran Kumar, founder and host of You're Not Invisible After 50. Despite the title, you don't have to be over 50 to listen to this podcast. No matter whether you're 25, 45, or 65, we can all learn lessons from each other to help us build a better, more fulfilled life. Come listen to the inspiring stories of all the phenomenal women over 50 who are kicking ass and making an impact. They are not invisible. I'm not invisible, and neither are you. So, no matter what society says, life doesn't end at 50. In fact, it's just beginning. Welcome to the You Are Not Invisible After 50 podcast. I'm Kiran and host of this podcast. We're all about showcasing phenomenal women over 50 who are kicking ass and making an impact. You get to hear all their inspiring stories why you don't have to be invisible after 50. So sit back and enjoy the wonderful life story from this week's guest. And my guest today is the one and only Jo Good, the middle-aged minx. Hi, Jo.
Hi, I'm so excited. And I think we need to explain to people there may be some glitches in the sound because for some reason my internet is playing up. And I've just blamed the cold weather, which is ridiculous, isn't it? But I can only think something outside is freezing the cables. That's all I can say.
That's fine, not an issue. So thank you for coming on to the podcast. Thank you for choosing to come on to the You're Not Invisible After 50 podcast. I'm going to get you to introduce yourself, first of all, to our listeners in one line or more of who you are.
I am someone who has reinvented myself over 68 years, from an actress to a broadcaster to a YouTuber and content creator.
Wow. And we're going to talk all about that going forward. In this podcast, we'll cover your life story, the past, the present, and whether there was a trigger point at 50. So where would you like to start in the past?
I think my journey is I was always a show off. I have a very introvert brother, and as I've reached the age I'm at, I realized he became more introvert as I became more extrovert, and I was allowed to be extrovert in my family. I was a very pretty blonde dancing child. I mean, you see them, I spot them everywhere, and and it was literally get up on the table and perform, and I would, and I loved it. And so it was quite natural that I was going to end up in a career where I could show off and earn applause. I was never, as people will realize who follow me, and if you've never heard of me before throughout this interview, you'll realize I was never very academic, not that intelligent, but very sharp. And it was that sharpness, I think, that helped me to keep going and not to stagnate, because often actors, and I know many, and in fact, geographically, I did that. I went down to Brighton as an actress and met loads and loads of other actors down there living the life, but beginning to stagnate. Now, there are lots of people in Brighton who are going to go, well, what an insult. But they all have great lives, but I just thought I need to get out of that, get back into the city and push my journey forward.
So let's just kind of go back in terms of your childhood and then moving into acting. How did that kind of transpire itself? How did it come about?
I think so I was a child dancer. I worked a lot in court, worked. I mean, I was chorus in local pantomimes. I did child modelling. So it was I was never going to take an academic route. I went to a very academic school because I got in, and this is a really important, I got in through the gift of the gab. And I've actually never said that before, because I grew up in Australia. So I came over, missed the 11 plus, took the 13 plus for a very Horsham High School for girls, very academic. And the 13 plus, I basically had an interview with all these very intelligent teachers who all wore gowns and mortarboards. I mean, we're talking about the end of the 60s. And I talked myself into this school, and I literally drowned in it. I mean, and I hated it because I knew I'd never get A levels. I scraped through enough O levels to get me into drama school, and then I left before taking my A levels, and there was this desk in the hall with Joanne Good's name on, and no Joanne Good. I didn't even have the notes to study from because I'd been such a bad pupil, but I got into a top London drama school, so I just thought, well, that's fine. I will just take 6 months off, au pair in France, and then go to drama school in London. So yeah, that's what I did. And one of my great failures, I suppose, was the fact that I did so badly at school academically.
Do you regret that?
Those gaps in my life, because people assume I'm a journalist, and I do have journalistic skills because I've worked in a newsroom for 25 years. I don't have the academic qualifications. I'm working with the brightest people in society, at the BBC. They're so sharp and intelligent. And I sometimes have to really, I do, I suppose this famous imposter syndrome I do have in the newsroom. But again, I say I'm very sharp, so I can get round it in other ways.
And you've done that exceptionally well. So let's talk about how your drama school and then breaking into acting. So when did that kind of breakthrough come? What was the first job that you got? And how did that kind of come around?
Well, for my generation at drama school, you had to have an equity card to get any work. So the main challenge was to get an equity card. You couldn't work without it. Now it's an open shop, but it was a closed union, and you couldn't work without it. So you'd go to a children's theatre company or a rep company and get your 40 weeks on your equity card, which is what I did. I ended up going to a children's theatre company in Yorkshire. I played a broccoli leaf. I played Brenda Broccoli for 40 weeks, got my equity card, came back to London, and then went into, I went into a soap opera, which at the time was hugely successful, but was also ridiculed, and for every good reason. It was called Crossroads, and it had 25 million viewers a night. Nowadays, Strictly doesn't get anywhere near there. There's no television program that gets 25 million a night. And that's what we had. It was hugely successful, but it was also, it was a double-edged sword. It gave me a lot. Financially, it gave me a lot. Status, it gave me a lot until I left. And then the proper acting world just wouldn't take you seriously. I mean, nowadays, if you're in EastEnders or Emmerdale, people don't care. But in those days, it was, oh my God, she's in Crossroads, So it was almost like danger money. But all of us who were in it, and I ended up in it, having an affair out of it with the character I was having an affair in it. So we became this tabloid sensation that I was having an affair with a married man in the program, and I was having an affair with him out of it.
Okay.
And I myself was married at the time. I'd married very young. I married an actor. And so it was quite scandalous. So you can imagine at the time, if you think you had that many viewers, it was quite a scandal. I mean, I look back at it now and I just laugh. I just laugh because, actors often, let's say in those days, the morals of actors, were completely different to how they are now. That's how I will put it.
Okay, there's so much to read into that, but I don't know which way to read that. That's quite interesting statement to make, and it's
I just don't want to offend actors of today because they'll go,
No problem. Okay, so from the acting, so you came out of Crossroads, and then how did you transition into broadcasting?
It was an interesting time, that actually, because when you talk about the benchmark of 50, I was in my 40s. Or late 30s and 40s, I suppose. Where I was doing lots of light entertainment at the BBC, playing Dolly Birds, and I was in Only Fools and Horses. I was in the Dave Allen Show, playing, empty-headed blondes, and earning a good living from it. I loved it. And I had people say, God, was it degrading? No, absolutely loved it. And then my dad died. My dad died when I was in my early 40s, and he worshipped me and me him, and it sent me sort of spiraling into. Now I look back on it. Now this is really interesting. Now I look back on it, it was depression. So I ended up with an eating disorder and moving, and at the same time I moved to Brighton, and it was as though I wanted to get myself away from London to hide down in Brighton, because Brighton is the end of the line, literally the end of the line. So I went to Brighton because I had acting friends living there at the time, and I used to visit them a lot. Also, property was much, much cheaper than London. So I thought, I'm going to sell my London flat that I'd got from the proceeds of being in Crossroads, and bought a beautiful flat, much bigger flat in Brighton. And I was there, and that was actually when my dad died. He died in 1987. So what was I then? 32, was I? 32, something like that. And this eating disorder really kicked in, and it's only since your generations and other generations have even started to discuss anorexia, that it was depression. I've never thought it was depression. I just thought I'd gone a bit crazy. But when I look back on it, it is a form of depression. And my acting work really did dry up because of the way I looked, because I was so thin and emaciated looking. And I remember my agent saying to me, "Jo, you've got to pull yourself together, because we can't put you up for any work." But the BBC in Brighton, they would have me come in as a celebrity to do their paper reviews for the local BBC. And because I'm quite opinionated and I'm quite gobby, they then gave me, it sounds so simplistic, but they actually gave me the breakfast show in Brighton. And that was like one of the happiest times of my life, because it was an award-winning breakfast show in Brighton, which is a gossipy town, but got city. I loved it, and I started to get really well, and because I felt, gosh, I really earned my place here, sitting behind a microphone, just talking about Brighton, which I loved, and then talking about Brighton news. That's when I started to, I suppose, to train as a journalist, because I was doing news stories from Brighton politics, the whole lot, on a breakfast show. And I did it for a long time. And I was doing acting work at the same time, but it was less important. It had to be a good job for me to get on that train up to London and audition, or even do it, because I was enjoying my life in Brighton, as the breakfast show presenter.
Fabulous. I mean, first of all, just to say that, in terms of, losing your parent, I mean, I know how that feels, because I've lost both my parents, and it takes you down very dark path. It's, you reach the abyss, as you did, and I've been there as well. Crawling back up is really hard work. But you realize after some time and looking back at it that you have to do that work to come back. I mean, the grief is always going to be with you. So well done you, I would say. And also the fact that you were very happy where you found the thing that made you happy.
I was so lucky. Lauren Bacall said, in her autobiography, Lauren Bacall said, you grow up, you finally grow up when you lose your parents. And it's so true. The people that would forgive you for everything have gone. Yeah. You're on your own.
And you do actually feel a lot on your own, actually. You feel that huge momental loss. It's you would never, you have arguments with your parents, you say these horrible things, like if you're growing up, I hate you, blah, 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 all of that stuff. And then suddenly when they go, you go, oh my God, it's a huge black void in your life. And no one can ever fill that back up. But let's move on. That is quite sad. So let's move on. So you went into broadcasting, and then from there you moved to London again, didn't you?
Yes, I am. So this is interesting, because I was determined. The show had done as well as it could, and we had, I think they said 1 in every 3 people living in Brighton listened to my breakfast show. That is a huge population of listeners, and I was, I loved it. But I loved BBC London. BBC London. When I was driving around the M25, I'd listen to it. And people like Danny Baker, Vanessa Feltz, Robert Elms, these are brilliant broadcasters. And I just thought I would love to be on that station because it was so exciting, so groovy. And I wrote to the editor to ask if I could come on. And he said, look, we have literally no vacancies at the moment. I mean, it's a very small world, radio broadcasting, and people seldom leave their jobs unless they're removed. And then Julie Burchill, who is now a friend of mine actually, wrote in The Guardian a piece about, she lived in Brighton, and she said, there are two good reasons to live in Brighton. One is the sea, and the second is Joe Good's radio show on BBC Brighton. And I cut it out of The Guardian. I photocopied it, and I sent it to this editor in London. And I said, look, she rates me. You could put me on your station and I would bring with me a massive audience, because this was pre-digital, by the way, pre-digital. I said I could bring all that audience who still can hear you because of the wavelength. You could hear BBC London and Brighton. I'll bring them with me and increase your listenership. And it's a very interesting story, this. I was in pantomime. I used to do the pantomime in Brighton, the big professional pantomime, because I was a radio presenter. So, they would always employ the local radio presenter because you talk about it on air and fill the house. So I was playing Fairy, and I was sitting in my dressing room, and I would do my breakfast show, and then I would run down and do 2 pantomime performances at the Brighton Theatre Royal. So I was knackered. But I got this text from my editor at BBC London who said, okay, I'm offering you the graveyard shift, basically, which is god awful. It's 2 a.m. to 6 a.m., literally nocturnal. And it's up to you if you want it. And I text back and I said, hold on, I'm giving up a breakfast show to work on the graveyard shift. And he went, and it was so clever. I've talked about this. He said, the door's open. You either walk through it or close it. And so I just thought, okay, I'll go. Yeah. So I left BBC Brighton and went up and started to do the graveyard shift, still living in Brighton. So I was commuting up and down in my dad's old Triumph Acclaim, breaking down constantly on the A24. But yeah, I took the graveyard shift, and then, to cut a long story short, Danny Baker won a Sony Award and resigned from in true Danny Baker style, resigned on the same day. And the editor said, Jo, can you go in now and do the breakfast show? And I went, what? To stand in for Danny Baker, with the most famous jock there is? And he said, yes. And so I thought, right, okay, do it. So I did it. And that was probably one of the most terrifying days of my life.
But it's also exceptionally exciting, because I'm just thinking as you were talking, progress doesn't always come in straight lines, right? Progress comes in all like a curved paths and whatever, and you end up somewhere new and wonderful and things that you wouldn't imagine. So the fact that you close the door on one and open another door actually open a huge big window for something totally different, and the thing that you actually originally wanted, but it just came a roundabout way. And I think that's just fabulous. I think that's just life, right?
I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. It came in such a roundabout way. I mean, for all I knew, I could have been sitting on that graveyard shift for 3 years, aging rapidly. But I actually was only there for a couple of weeks before I got the breakfast show. It was my breakfast show from Danny Baker. And I think I had that breakfast show for 5-6 years. And absolutely loved it.
And you're still on radio. Yeah.
On radio, but this is one of the things I really want to talk about on your podcast is, you can't ever play victim. You should never play victim, because I'm a pawn in the BBC's game, and we're all the presenters we're just pawns on a chessboard, and they will move you around and you are at their mercy. It is as simple as that. It is nothing to do with popularity. It's nothing to do with finance, because they're not a commercial station. They don't have to say, look, this person's hugely popular, they're making us a lot of money. They have to tick so many boxes for other reasons. And you know, we all know that as presenters. We know that we can be moved wherever they feel. And it can be, which has happened to me. It's happened to me, you know, at the BBC. And you either say, okay, yeah, I'll take the crumbs off the table, or you say, no, I'm out, you know, I'm off. It depends how you play it.
I think that's also the game for a lot of organizations. I mean, I worked in commercial organizations, and it's a game for everyone. If, you know, people move you around, people throw you out, people take you on, people, you know, shift you around. It happens with all major organizations. And it's quite, I think where you and I are now is doing our own thing, etc., gives us a lot more kind of stability and, you know, freedom, because you can do all of what you want to do your own way. And that actually brings us to the present. So let's talk about, you've gone from broadcasting to what are you doing, social media, and let's talk about that, the work that you're doing currently.
So it's really important, that, because it's taking control, and going back to my eating disorder, which is very much, I am a control freak, and that, you know, is trying to take total control. And as an actress, I had no control. I was literally at the mercy of my agent. At the BBC, I have no control. I have a huge audience who will follow me and have followed me from all the radio stations I've worked on. But it doesn't matter, as I've just said, and like you've just said, you are at the mercy of the decisions of those above you. Mm-hmm. So what I love now is, on social media, I have absolute control of what I put out there, on how I receive the trolling. I have, you know, we can talk about trolling till the cows come home, you know, but and the trolls, unfortunately, are women. This is women out to get women, which is appalling, as though our lives haven't actually, we've struggled.
Been hard enough.
For women, and men don't do it. Men do not troll other women. It's women do it. And so that's part of the game. So that's one of the things we could talk about. The other thing is, yes, it's my YouTube channel, my Instagram is something that every single thing you watch, I've put in, I've decided in what order it goes in, when it goes out. And oh my gosh, for the first time ever, you know, and I think that's why so many people start YouTube channels and Instagram, because you're just, you know, you're not at the whim of an employer. You are literally controlling how you want to be perceived.
Absolutely. And it's really quite interesting, because I'm on social media because of what I'm doing, the podcast. I'm actually launching, you know, or by the time this goes out, I would have already launched my personal Instagram, which is a huge step forward, the face behind whatever I do. And it's quite interesting, because what I've seen with all the women that I interview, how they've progressed and how they have grown on social media, and the opportunities that come your way through being out there. And also, as we've been saying, Jo, you know, the control that you have, you can put out what you want, you can say what you feel, you can also delete the people who you don't like, because you just, like, the switch off button, you know, get rid of them. You don't need to have them, you don't need to hear them. There's, as you said, we've all been through our own struggles in our work, our business, our lives. Why do we need to put up with it anymore? I love that delete button. I think it's great. You know, you've got the people who follow you and support you, go with that. But the fact is, you feel so kind of empowered by the control that you have for the first time, probably, in your life.
Absolutely. And back me up on this. I mean, it's so easy to dismiss social media, and I did it for many years. I just thought, oh, what is this? What, you know, a like, a thumbs up, what a pointless, you know, banal way. But those who do it well, oh my gosh, it is such a talent. It's a real talent, because you can see the people that do it badly. You know, you just think, why do I want to do that? But people who view life, and I think it's really clever now when people say, oh God, everyone's walking around with phones and cameras and everything. I actually think we're all looking at life through new lenses. Yeah. You know, when they use the term, oh, that's very Instagrammable, don't use that as a put down. It means you're actually revaluing something that you will have walked past before or not thought about before. I honestly think it's making us or helping us to look at life literally through a new lens. And I don't think we should dismiss it. I really don't. I know, all forms of media is abused, and it will be, and exploited. But I love the fact it's for the people, that people can do it. And if the people become successful at it, it's because of their talent, not because of some management company or whatever. It's their talent. It's basically as raw as that. You put yourself out there and you see whether you can rise above it or sink below it.
Well, I mean, the thing is, even if you're just putting it out for your pleasure, I mean, like as I said, that, I'm going out on social media as the person behind what I do. And I think that for me, that's it's taken me about a year, because my podcast has been going for over a year now. And people say to me, Kieran, you should be in front of the camera as well, not just showcasing other women, which is great, but you should also be there showcasing yourself or who you are. And I think that's a really important point. And I've learned so much during this time in terms of how to handle social media, which is a good learning curve. So hopefully that will apply in my personal one. And I just think, let's just see how that goes. But if you don't put yourself out there, you're not going to be seen. You're not going to be heard. You're not going to capture that moment. You're not going to give your insight. You're not going to leave a mark on the world. And I just think whatever mark that may be, you have the opportunity to do it in this way.
So, and congratulations to you. I think you're absolutely right. And I, this interview, you are really good at what you do. And what people will want is to know a bit more about the person behind the questionnaire. So you're absolutely right to offer them something more. But I do think, to go back, to the title of this podcast, is when I was younger, to be criticized and trolled and negative comments would have destroyed me. But I don't know about you. It's like, just delete it. You just think, oh, well, there you go. You're obviously embittered, or you're jealous, or you're whatever. You're dealing with stuff. I'll just delete you. It's not going to dent my ego at all.
Yeah.
You're done. 20 years, I probably would have stayed in bed for a day.
I think that's quite true. I mean, I think you still stay in bed because, sometimes you don't get women supporting women, even in what I do at the moment. And I think I don't get that. I don't understand it. It's beyond my kind of thinking process. But, I just feel that, yes, support other women, encourage them, be on the same side. And it's idealistic, I know, but let's lift everybody up, and it should be real, right? And that's what it should be all about. But it's interesting what you're saying about the name of the podcast. I mean, that brings me to a trigger point. Was there a trigger point in your life at 50? Was there one at all?
You see, it's interesting this, because it's only when I sit down and talk to someone like you, I think of my life in chapters, and I think of all these sliding door moments or change in direction. At 50, I was very lucky, because that's when I'd come back into London and it was all happening for me. If we talk physically about stuff, I had a late menopause. So I think my menopause was at 58, I think it was, which is very late, same as my mother's. But when I look back at my behavior leading up, and I am one of these people who said I just sailed through my menopause. I don't know what all this is about, all this yam and HRT, and I just sailed through it. But Kieran, if I look back at my behavior, I actually think I was behaving in a very strange way. Personally more than career. So the career was doing really, really well. But personally, I think I had a sort of final thrust of hormones that made me become so I have never ever wanted children, and that's a whole different topic. And it's also, I was thinking about your podcast, and I was thinking it's a very important part of why I'm where I am. I've never had to take on the responsibility, which I'm now having to do with my mother, but I never had to do it with children. So I could just sail on through. I didn't have to worry about anything. So I never at 50 or 60 or even at 70, I know, will never have thought, God, should I have had them? Have I made a massive mistake? Never. I have nothing but admiration, because how the hell you remain sane and you have any sense of career. I truly believe this, because I have worked with producers who are so talented, and forgive me, this is not a very feminist thing that I'm going to say, are so talented, go off, have their kids, come back, and it's like they, in fact, one I remember was producing me, and with tears running down her face, and she went, I don't know what I am. I hate not being with my baby, and I just feel like I'm not giving you. And I just said, you should be with your baby. You shouldn't be sitting here trying to choose me on a 6 o'clock in the morning. It's like, but she's so, and she's out there. She's a really good, well-known producer at the BBC. She got through it. How the hell she got through it? And I've seen it so many times. And I never had that. It was my world according to me. I did what I wanted to do. But to go back to the physical thing at 50, and again, I've never talked about this before. I just became, I was not sex obsessed at all. I've just never been that sort of person. But I was having relationship after relationship at 50, after relationship. So I'd gone through the anorexic sort of, sparse years to suddenly at 50, probably my hormones had kicked in. And this was like, this is your final curtain call before the show's over, basically. And so I had a really good run of crazy relationships. And that's how I think of my 50s. Must have been a hormonal surge.
I'm just laughing.
He said, I just can't think of anything worse than actually getting into bed with anyone. I love the fact that I have my bed to myself. I love the fact that I come home to this flat and all I have is a bulldog. I don't have to speak to anybody. But, I think that at 50, I don't know what happened to me. I'm sure it was the fact my hormones just thought, this is your final hour. Because I truly have never thought about it. But that's exactly, I had this wonderful, relationship, and career was going fine. It was going really well. It was physically that I started to behave differently, just for a short spell. And then I settled into celibacy.
That's a fantastic note before we go into our commercial break. We're now going to go to our commercial break, and when we're back, we'll talk about what the future looks like and also the bonus part of the podcast. Did you know that You Are Not Invisible After 50 is not just about a highly acclaimed global podcast? Our mission is to empower all women, regardless of colour, creed, class and culture, across all countries and continents. So we have 2 empowering courses for you. A high-return 1-hour masterclass, Building a Life You Love, Creating Your Own Path After 50. This transformative masterclass is one you've been waiting for. Are you ready to seize life after 50 like never before? Well, say goodbye to feeling stuck and say hello to the life you love. Don't let age define your limits. Let it ignite your possibilities. This transformative masterclass is your ticket to a vibrant and fulfilling future. But that's not all. We also have our innovative introductory business course, Greater Gold. In today's dynamic business world, age should never be a barrier to success. Say goodbye to age-related stereotypes and hello to unstoppable success. Our half-a-day course will equip you with the skills and confidence you need to conquer the business world. Discover the true value of your experience, reinvent yourself, stay competitive, and master the art of self-presentation. It's time to turn your grey into gold. Visit our website and check out our courses geared to propel you to the next level. So embrace your age, utilize your wisdom, experience, and own your success. Spots are limited. Also, we have wonderful products launching this year. So keep a watch on our social media, posts and website, www.youarenotinvisibleafter50.com. You can also find out more about the woman behind You Are Not Invisible After 50. Details are available on my website, www.iamkirankumar.com, or my Instagram account at iamkirankumar13. We look forward to you connecting with us. Thank you. So, Jo, let's move on and talk about the future. So what's on the horizon? What's happening going forward?
Well, so I'm really lucky that my show now, I'm having criticised the BBC saying I've been moved around like a pawn on a chessboard. It's actually played out very nicely for me because I now have 2 networked shows. So my 2 shows go all over the country, which is just what I wanted because it frees me up for the rest of the week to do all my social media and I work on Sheer Lux, which is an online ladies magazine. I do their gold show for women, and I do loads of other things. And when I was doing a show every night on the BBC, I was so tired, and I ended up. I thought I was going to have nothing because they moved everyone around. Local radios going through so many changes, and I just thought, okay, this is probably going to be it. My contract was up. I thought this is probably it, and that will be the end of my time at the BBC. And then they offered me 2 network or national radio shows on Friday and Saturday night. So that I am so excited about. I've just started them and I love it because I love doing a phone in. I love talking to listeners, and you get, calls from all over the country, accents I haven't heard, and I'm really attentive thinking I can't patronize. I can't say, sorry, what did you say? So my ears are becoming attuned to all these. I mean, only in this country would you get, just up the M1, everyone's accent changes. It's, and I just love it. So I'm really looking forward to doing more of that. As far as my social media is concerned, my YouTube channel is doing really well. It takes, oh my gosh, you can't take your foot off the pedal, I always put out one YouTube vlog on a Sunday. And I hope now that I've got more time, I can start to put out 2 a week. And if you put out 2 a week, you then do start to build. My ambition is to get to 100,000 because then I'll have on this wall, Kieran, this wall that has Mick Jagger on behind me, and a collage of myself. This is literally a collage of myself. How vain is that? I would love a silver button from YouTube saying I've made 100,000 subscribers. I would love it. So yeah, that's my intention, to get to 100,000 on Instagram and on YouTube. But it's slow and steady. I always think it's like, when they say if you want to lose weight, lose it slowly and it'll stay off. And I always think if you want to build your subscribers, build it slowly and they'll stay with you, which they do. They stay, but it's taken so long.
It does. It's a lot of hard work. It's actually quite interesting that, a lot of the women that, recently on the podcast, we've had a lot of influencers on who, when you look at their work, it's constant. It's 24/7. It's going at it all the time. And it is that sheer hard work. And I also know currently that it's a lot of work, but the work is going to increase. But there's so much pleasure from it as well, because as we've said already, we have creative control on what we're doing. We have control on putting it out. We have control to say what we want to say, etc., etc. And I think that is the beauty of social media. People talk all about the negativity, but we need to flip that switch as well. There's so much good out there, and if we're all come with that intention, then things will change. We'll go, wow, social media, definitely go on it. It's worth it, kind of thing. It's a great plug.
Totally agree.
So, anything else that's going on in the future before we go into the bonus part of the podcast?
So build my social media, doing a national radio show, which is really good. I have, and I can't talk too much about it. Oh God, I hate people that say that, but I have collaborations with brands, with really good brands that I started to work with. Now, this is so interesting. These are fashion brands and beauty brands. I am 68 and they are using me as an ambassador. Now, It blows my mind, because my mother at 68 would never have been asked to promote a fashion, a very luxury fashion brand, or indeed moisturizers or serums or whatever. It would never have happened. And I just think, oh my gosh, aren't we lucky? We are the trailblazers. But the women have done it before us, those people who've made it so much easier. And it was, an example of this is, I work with really young people. My team at the BBC are so young, they could be my grandchildren. And they genuinely, and I really do think this, they don't see me as some old biddy sitting there in the studio. They literally see, I go out with them, they come out with me, they come around here. And I think their parents have done such a good job. Like your kids probably won't see an age gap,
Yeah.
and it's your generation, you've done a bloody good job. And these kids, they are kids, but they don't see a 68-year-old. I don't think. I may be deluded, but I don't think they do.
Well, congratulations for all that. But I think the tide is turning. And I think also all of the women who are out there on social media, who are influencers, who are over 50, are making an impact. And all of them are earning great money from great collaborations. And people are taking them seriously. There's beauty in aging. We're all going to age, And I think our thinking is different, because it's interesting, because when we're younger, we don't really think about how we're going to be when we're older. And as you get older and you get into that phase, you think, well, here I am. This is a bit of, surprise. How do I deal with this? How do I manage myself? I started my podcast at 57. I never thought of me, an Indian woman at 57 doing a podcast on You're Not Invisible After 50. But the fact is that we are thinking outside the box, and that's what it's all about. And all these trailblazers, which we're amongst, are carving the path for all the people who are coming up behind us. And if there's many of us, whereas now there's not a few of us, there's a lot of us. And I think that's a really good place to be.
You're absolutely right. And one of the loveliest things is the camaraderie around women our age. When you're younger, you're often quite territorial, especially in a cutthroat business like social media. You think, God, this is my area. I don't want anyone else to take anything that I've achieved. When I work for Hobbs, and the women that work for Hobbs, they had a Christmas party, all of us. The camaraderie, no one sees anyone else as competition. If they love a post you put up or a video that Hobbs, everyone's applauding each other, going, oh my God, you look amazing, I love your hair, how did you do that? When forgive me, but when I was younger, that would never have been the case. People would have got so competitive. But like-minded women, I think I love the company of women. I love the company of women, because they are, I think, so generous to each other. I hate the sisterhood is ridiculous, but I do think there is a real kindness and affection for one another. I really think that it's a lovely place to be in a group of women.
I think if you find your people, that's great. And I think, but I think competition exists regardless of age. People still think areas can be territorial. And I'm not, I just think that women should just be generous to other women and be kind. And that's as simple as it gets, really. It's not anything more complicated than that, really. So let's talk about the bonus part of the podcast, right? So what are the 5 tips that you'd give to anyone who's under 50?
We're talking about women, not men under 50. This is women under 50, yes?
Yes.
And I think it's an important point. To become a little bit controversial, the BBC insists that I call, when actresses come on and I interview them, they insist that I call them actors. And I go, no, sorry, they're actresses. The journey of an actress at my age was so different to the journey of an actor at my age. Maybe now, young actors and actresses is all the same, but it was a very different journey. That's why I asked, are these bonuses for women only? So I would first, and I always say this, if I'd had a female baby, I would have had stamped on her head from the moment she bounced out of that womb. There is no such thing as a free lunch. Mm-hmm. And I honestly, all the time when people think, oh gosh, they're going to do me a good deed or they're going to help me or something, there is always a consequence. So do it yourself. Do not ride on the back of others. No one has given me anything. I have earned. They've given me an opportunity, like my editor saying, but riding on the back of the others, as I say, it will come back to bite you. So do it yourself. Do it through your own integrity. That's what I would say. Mm-hmm. The other thing is, I would always, you see, I've never, until I've sat down with you, ever looked back. I always think, look forward. Just look forward, look forward. They say in radio, you're only as good as your last radio show. And I think in life, you're only as good as yesterday. So just now move forward. Forget that. Forget all the stuff that you've come from. It's just onwards all the time. Only when you get to this age do you sit and do a podcast and look backwards. Just look forwards. That's what I would say. The other thing is laugh. This sounds so saccharine, but my face is a mass of laugh lines because I have just laughed through life. And one of the things I did as an actress, having said that, as an actress, is if you do everything with a smile, every role with a smile, behind the microphone, I speak with a smile, people move towards you. They literally, physically move towards you. So just do it all with a smile. A smile is so powerful. If someone goes for you, tells you off, says something vicious, look at them and smile.
That's a hard one to do.
It just pulls, the rug from under them. And again, and I'm sure I'm really sure that so many women would have said this to you. And it sounds like, one of these awful manifestation books, which I loathe, by the way. But this whole thing about kindness, it's that you get it back threefold.
Yeah.
And it's just that whole thing about if you're kind to people, it means you're also kind to yourself because it's a lovely feeling to be kind to someone. And they say everything we do for ourselves, and I'm quite sure. How altruistic are we? We probably do everything for ourselves, but it spreads. It's one kindness, just because I find myself getting very ratty as I get older, and people that are in shops making me queue, and I just think, stop it. Look at what they're having to deal with. They're having to deal with the bloody public. So just be a bit kind. And then finally, I would say, and this is, this, and I cannot say this strongly enough, is please celebrate your parents. What you said, and it made me very emotional right at the top of this, you think of I think of what I said to my parents, like, you've destroyed my life. I remember shouting that, and my mum now is 99 and she has dementia. And she doesn't even know who I am. But I know that for the past, I don't know how many years, we've had such a great time together. I used to take her to all the West End shows. She would see me. She didn't really care what I did. She was never boastful about what I did or anything. She just loved me as a companion. Yeah. We got on so well. And I look back and I think, no regrets. I see her now. She doesn't know who I am, but I know we've had the best possible time. And I wish I'd made more of that with my dad, who died when I was very young. I loved him so much, but I never told him. Because our generation never did. You just never did. I still to this day have never said to my mother, I love you, because she was a Second World War baby. They just didn't speak like that. So that, and then my final thing is look after your teeth. I have, because of my eating disorder, I have a mouthful of beautiful teeth, but very few of them are my own. They're implants and veneers and everything else. And that was due to my life, my mental health, and everything else. And I would just say, really, really look, I sound like, who's that poet that actually wrote a whole poem about take care of your teeth? But it's so important. Yeah. It's so important.
Jo, thank you for
Do
sharing
they
that.
sound banal, Kieran?
No, not at all. I'm very emotional actually about, the parent one. I mean, I can, totally feel that. And I don't talk too much about it because it just brings so many emotions. But thank you for sharing that. What tips would you give to anybody who's over 50?
God, I say, well done, you got that. I mean, goodness me. Good, because of so many people don't make it. Over 50,
Three
I would
tips.
say, excuse me, I would say, golly, it's so difficult not to speak in cliches. But this is how I think about my life: is health, 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 health. I got asthma after COVID, and I've never realized what people deal with when you literally think, actually, I can't run over there. If they say, come now, I can't actually get there now because I've got to think, God, I can't breathe. We take it so much for granted. Healthy people take health so much for granted. So I would say, really take care of your health. Really do everything. And I've done so much research into this. I live in London where fresh food is so difficult to get hold of. It's so expensive. Try not to eat processed food. I really, really mean this. Talking about all the dementia. Oh gosh, I've done so many interviews about dementia, and there's so much research into what we eat, what we've done. Why is there so much dementia around? My mother's main carer, is called Happiness, and she's Nigerian. Imagine being called Happiness, care home. I mean, she's amazing, this girl. And she said to me, we don't have dementia in Nigeria. And I said, well, you must do. And I said, is it because you would never, ever allow your family to go into a home? And she said, no, there are no homes. They live at home. And I said, but they must, if they reach, my mum's 99, her brain is almost out. And she went, no, we seriously don't have it. And she said, it's, what you all do to yourselves, all your stress, all of your processed food. And I just thought, and pollution. And I thought, maybe that's, I don't know. But it set me thinking that for how many years I've got left, I'm obsessed with living a healthy life.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting about you saying the pollution because I'm living in Bristol at the moment and I've kind of came to London because that's where my kids are. And I could actually feel the pollution in the air. And I just think, I couldn't wait to get back to Bristol. And Bristol is a very new city for me. But it was like, yeah, you could actually feel the difference. And I totally agree with the processed foods as well, because we eat too much. And in fact, I'm going down that route where I'm looking at my food, I'm looking at my diet, I'm looking at my exercise regime, I'm doing boxing and Pilates and I just think I need to keep fit because my father had so many ailments and I don't want to go down that path. And I know about dementia because my mother had vascular dementia at the end. But you have to do as much as you can to take care of yourself.
And you feel great then. When you're boxing, I must start boxing. I really want to get my arms sorted out. But you feel great. So it's no longer, a sacrifice. When you're buzzing on all cylinders, you look forward to all of that. You look forward to healthy food and you look forward to exercise. It takes a while to get that far because I swim every morning and weather it's so cold, I just think, oh God. But once I'm there, I love it. When I come back, I think, right, on with life, get out there. And knowledge is power, Karen. We've never been given so much information on health. So much. For God's sake, 5 a day is patronizingly written on every single thing we buy. We've been given all this. So, we must. Yes,
exactly. Apply it. What other 2 tips would you give to the listeners if they're over 50?
If they're over 50, I would say, okay, if you're in a toxic relationship, get the hell out. I have so many people call me on my show who either go down the end of the garden to call me and tell me about anonymously, what they're going through. Through the pandemic, it was extraordinary. Through the pandemic, I did the radio show from this flat because they closed the BBC. So I was broadcasting from this flat. And there were so many people that would call up and say, well, they didn't, that's a lie. They didn't call up, they emailed to say, my affair is all over. I can't see the person I was having an affair with because I'm stuck in the house with the kids and my partner, and I can't even get to the phone to tell them. And I was like, oh my God, so many people are living these lives, double lives, and living a compromise. And I would just say, if you're in a toxic relationship, not even toxic, if you're in a relationship that doesn't suit you, get out. Don't be scared. Sometimes you just think, I can't go it alone. I can't go it. Well, you can. Look at you and I. Look at you and I.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, 52, I was told by my ex-husband's lawyer, what are you doing leaving a relationship at 52? And I thought, I'm doing what I need to do.
Look at you. Look at you. You don't look 52. You see, that's the attitude. People who are so scared at 50 to take that leap. Oh, you'll be reborn. I'm telling you. So don't stay for the kids. Don't stay for them. Don't stay for your parents. Get out if you don't like it. You will have a better life. You will have a better life. And my last one would be, again, probably sleep. Get as much sleep as you can, because when I was doing 5 late night shows a week, oh my gosh, everything. That's when I got asthma. That's when I was starting up to feel I was going around the bend. Sleep, so important, and underrated. That takes us back to dementia. They were saying we're all sleep deprived. And we were given, through the pandemic, forgive me, it's being flippant, we were given the chance to rest, and it was, for many people, an opportunity to just rest. Because if you walk down the streets, I always think, when I'm in my car and people are crossing in front of me at zebra crossings, they look exhausted, most people. And I just think, sleep, try and sleep, have a good 8 hours at night.
Absolutely. Wonderful words from a wonderful person. It's been a phenomenal interview, and thank you for the compliment earlier on. Thanks for being on here.
I honestly, Kieran, I've got emotional twice in this, because you've asked me things and I've said things I have never ever said before, ever. I think you're really good at your job, and if I can help you with your YouTube channel or whatever, seriously, let me know. Seriously.
Oh my God, that's such a compliment. I'm a total novice.
But what can I teach you anything? But if there's anything to do with editing or anything, but you can do it all, so you'll be fine.
Fabulous. Thank you, Jo, for the offer, for being on here, and for the enormous compliment, really.
Thank you. I'm going to go now because I have an awful feeling my dog has chewed through my Jimmy Choos.
Thank you for listening to the You're Not Invisible After 50 podcast. If you want to hear more from some amazing women who are over 50, who are kicking ass and making impact, then don't forget to follow us right here on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Remember to subscribe, rate, comment, and share with other women through your social media. Let's spread the word across the world that you don't have to be invisible after 50. Check out our other services on www.you'renotinvisibleafter50.com and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, and YouTube. And always remember that life doesn't end at 50. In fact, it's just beginning. But wait, we have even more to offer. Join us and tune in to our other podcast, Shamelessly Untamed, a transformative series that encourages you to embrace your true self and celebrate your uniqueness. We look forward to you connecting with us. Thank you.